I left Raleigh with $412, a duffel bag in the passenger seat, and a fuel gauge that kept creeping lower every time I looked at it. Storm bands were rolling over the Outer Banks. I could see them from Highway 64, dark gray sheets dragging across the horizon. The kind of weather that makes you wonder if you picked the wrong week to drive toward the ocean. The radio cut in and out, static, then somebody talking about tropical moisture, then more static. I turned it off. My phone sat in the cup holder. Dead since yesterday. I hadn't bothered charging it. Didn't need to call anyone. Didn't want anyone calling me. The duffel bag had most of what I owned now. 2 changes of clothes, a razor, work gloves I probably wouldn't need but couldn't leave behind, a photo I kept meaning to throw out and never did. That was it. Everything else got left in the apartment or sold off to make rent I couldn't cover anyway. I kept replaying how fast it all came apart. The roofing crew laid me off 3 weeks back. Not my fault, they said. Just slow season, budget cuts. They'd call me when work picked up again. I knew that was bullshit. They'd been cutting hours for a month before that. I saw it coming and still didn't have a plan. Eviction notice came 8 days later, taped to the door when I got back from a job interview that went nowhere. I stood there in the hallway reading it twice, like the words might change if I looked harder. They didn't. I called my cousin in Durham. He said he didn't have space. Called a buddy from the crew. Same thing. I didn't have a lot of people to call after that. No family left to go back to. My mom passed when I was 22. Dad was gone long before that. I had an uncle in Virginia once, but we didn't talk. There wasn't anyone waiting to catch me. I spent 2 days looking at apartment listings I couldn't afford and job boards that wanted experience I didn't have. Then I saw the National Park Service posting. Overnight caretaker, Cape Hatteras Lighthouse, room and board included. Pay wasn't much, but it was something. It was the only door still open. I applied on a Tuesday. They called me Thursday. Didn't ask a lot of questions, just confirmed I could start immediately and didn't have a criminal record. I said yes to both. That was it. I packed the duffel bag, checked out of the apartment, and pointed the truck south. The highway stretched flat and empty through farmland and pine forests. I stopped once for gas in Columbia, paid with cash, and bought a pack of peanut butter crackers I ate standing by the pump. The wind smelled like rain and fertilizer. I got back in and kept driving. The bridge to Hatteras Island came up around 3:30, long and low, cutting across the sound. Water on both sides, choppy and gray under the clouds. I could see pelicans diving near the pylons. The truck rattled over the grates, and I realized my hands were tight on the wheel. I didn't know what I was driving toward. Just knew I couldn't stay where I was. Buxton showed up late afternoon, small and scattered along the highway. A few shops, a gas station, a post office that looked closed. Everything had that end-of-season feel, like the town was holding its breath before winter came through. I followed the signs toward the lighthouse. Took a turn onto a smaller road, past some rental cottages with their shutters up, and then I saw the visitor center. Single story, brick and wood, parking lot mostly empty except for a maintenance van and a sedan with government plates. The lighthouse stood behind it. Black and white spiral, taller than I expected. I'd seen pictures, but pictures don't really show you the size. It looked out of place. Too clean and geometric against the scrub and dunes. I pulled into the lot and killed the engine. Sat there a minute. The wind rocked the truck a little. I could hear it whistling through the window seal. Okay, this was it. I grabbed the duffel bag and got out. The air hit cold and damp, tasting like salt. My boots crunched on gravel as I walked toward the entrance. There was a sign by the door. Closed for the season. Reopens April 1st. I tried the handle anyway. Locked. There was a buzzer next to the door frame. I pressed it and waited. Nothing. I pressed it again. Checked my phone out of habit, then remembered it was dead. No idea what time Dorothy Foster said she'd be here. The email just said late afternoon. That could mean anything. I stood there like an idiot for maybe 5 minutes. The wind kept picking up. I could see the ocean past the dunes, dark and restless under the cloud cover. A gull landed on the railing nearby, looked at me, then took off again. I was about to sit down on the bench by the door when I heard an engine. The government truck came around from the back access road, white with the Park Service logo on the side. It pulled up next to my truck and stopped. A woman got out. 5'7", maybe. Solid build. Sandy blonde hair pulled tight in a bun. She wore the Park Service uniform, green and gray with a windbreaker zipped halfway. Her face didn't give much away. She looked at me, then at my truck, then back at me. Isaac Fig? Yeah, that's me. She walked over. Didn't offer a hand, just pulled a lanyard from her pocket and unlocked the visitor center door. Dorothy Foster. We spoke on the phone. She pushed the door open and stepped inside. Bring your bag. I followed her in. The lights were off. She flipped a switch and fluorescence buzzed to life overhead. That flicker hum that always sounds like something's about to die. The lobby opened up into a space with exhibit panels and a gift shop counter roped off with caution tape. Everything looked scrubbed clean. Too clean. The floors shined like they'd been waxed yesterday. It smelled like bleach. And under that, old paper. The kind of smell you get in government buildings that haven't been updated since the 90s. Dorothy walked past the exhibits without looking at them. I set my duffel down by the counter and trailed after her. ID, she said. I pulled out my wallet and handed over my driver's license. She looked at it, checked something on a clipboard she'd picked up from the desk, then handed it back. Paperwork came through yesterday. You're cleared to start tonight. She set the clipboard down and turned to face me. Her eyes were gray, flat, like she'd already decided what kind of person I was and wasn't interested in revising her opinion. This is a straightforward position. You keep the facility secure overnight, log any alarms, keep tourists out if they try the gates, call dispatch if equipment fails or something breaks. Got it. You'll stay in the keeper's quarters. It's behind the lighthouse, small but functional. Bathroom works, kitchenette. Heat's fine as long as you don't touch the thermostat past 70. Okay. She started walking again, past the gift shop into a back hallway. I followed. The fluorescence back here flickered worse. There were framed photos on the walls, old black and white shots of the lighthouse being moved, and some diagrams I didn't stop to read. Dorothy stopped at a door marked Administration. She unlocked it and went inside. I stayed in the doorway. The office was small. 2 desks, filing cabinets, a coffee maker that looked older than me. Everything neat. No personal items, no clutter, just files and binders stacked in perfect rows. She opened one of the filing cabinets and pulled out a binder, flipped through it. Your shift starts at 2100, ends at 0600. You'll do a walkthrough every 2 hours. Log it here. She tapped a sheet inside the binder. If you see anything unusual, you call dispatch first. Not me, not local police. Dispatch. What counts as unusual? Anything that doesn't fit the routine. She closed the binder and set it on the desk. You'll get a feel for it. That didn't answer the question, but I didn't push. She crossed to another cabinet. Metal, gray, older than the first one. She pulled a key from her pocket, unlocked it, and slid the drawer open. Then she just stood there, looking down at whatever was inside. Come here, she said. I stepped closer, looked into the drawer. There was a radio, a flashlight, a first aid kit, and a key, just one. Brass, old-looking, hanging on a ring by itself. Dorothy tapped the drawer. Once, her finger on the metal edge. You don't lose what's in here, she said. Especially the key. I don't care if it seems stupid. I don't care if you don't understand why. You keep it on you during your shift. You don't leave it anywhere. You don't let anyone else touch it. I stared at the key. What's it for? Doesn't matter. Her voice didn't change, flat and steady. Do you understand what I just said? Yeah, don't lose it. Say it clearly. I won't lose the key. She looked at me for a long moment, then she nodded once and stepped back. Good. Take your gear. I'll show you the quarters. Dorothy's truck was still pulling away when I went back to the cabinet. I could hear the engine fading down the access road. Probably wouldn't be back for half a minute at least, and I figured I had time. Half annoyed, half curious. That's how I'd describe it. She'd made such a point about the key, about not losing it, about keeping it on me. But she hadn't actually explained what the hell it was for. Just that it mattered. The drawer slid open, smooth, well-maintained. Everything inside was arranged neat. Radio on the left, flashlight next to it, first aid kit in the back corner. The brass key sat on a short braided lanyard, old but clean. And underneath it, something I hadn't noticed before because Dorothy had been standing right there watching me. A laminated card. Maybe 4 inches by 6. White background, black text. I picked it up. The top said, Operational Guidelines in all caps. Then underneath, in smaller print, for night staff only, Cape Hatteras Light Station. Then 5 rules, numbered, single-spaced. I read them standing there with the fluorescents buzzing overhead and Dorothy's truck engine completely gone now. Just me and the card. 1. At 12:10 a.m., place a cup of black coffee on the east windowsill of the main lobby. Do not look outside after placing it. Turn away immediately. 2. If the Marine radio plays a Mayday call containing your full legal name, shut off the radio immediately and step outside the building for exactly 3 minutes. Do not respond to the transmission. 3. If wet footprints appear on the interior stairwell leading to the lantern gallery, mop them toward the front entrance. Do not attempt to trace their origin. 4. If anyone asks you for the lens key, give them the brass key from the equipment drawer and lock yourself in the supply closet until your shift ends. 5. Never shine a flashlight or any other light source into the lantern room after 2 a.m. I read them twice, then a third time. Tried to laugh. Couldn't quite manage it. They were specific. That's what got me. Not vague warnings or spooky nonsense. Specific times. Specific actions. The kind of detail that came from somebody writing down exactly what to do. Probably because somebody else had needed to know. Black coffee at 12:10. Not midnight. Not 12:15. 12:10. East windowsill. Not just any window. Your full legal name. Not a name. Not your name. Your full legal name. Exactly 3 minutes. I turned the card over. Nothing on the back. Just blank laminated white. I stood there holding it for probably a full minute. The cabinet drawer was still open. The brass key sat on its lanyard next to where the card had been. This was a National Park Service job. Federal employment. They didn't do hazing. Didn't have time for pranks. Dorothy Foster didn't seem like the kind of person who'd waste effort on scaring some new hire for fun. But the rules didn't make sense. I put the card back in the drawer, took the radio, the flashlight, the first aid kit, left them on the desk. Then I picked up the brass key on its lanyard and slipped it over my head. The metal was cold against my shirt. Closed the drawer, locked the cabinet, picked up my gear and the card again. Figured I'd keep it, just in case. The evening went slow. I checked every lock on the ground floor. Front entrance, side exit, back door near the restrooms, storage closet, administration office. All secure. Tested each one twice. The alarm panel was mounted near the main entrance. Older model, green LEDs showing armed in each zone. I didn't touch it, just confirmed it was on. Walked the layout, memorized it. Main lobby up front with the gift shop counter and the exhibit panels. Hallway leading back past the restrooms and the administration office. Another corridor branching left toward storage and maintenance. The stairwell to the tower started from a separate door near the back of the lobby, marked Lighthouse access. Authorized personnel only. I tried the handle. Locked. The fluorescents overhead were harsh, bright and cold and buzzing in that way that gets into your skull after a while. Everything looked flat under them. No shadows, just waxed floors and blank walls and the smell of bleach still hanging faint in the air. I walked back to the lobby and stood at the windows. Outside, the lighthouse tower rose into the dark. I could see the black and white spiral pattern for maybe the first third. Then it faded into nothing. No moon. Clouds sitting heavy and low. The wind was picking up. I could hear it now, a steady push against the building and every so often a scatter of sand or grit hitting the glass. The keeper's quarters were back behind the lighthouse, maybe 50 yards. Dorothy had walked me over earlier, shown me the narrow bed and the kitchenette and the space heater that worked if I didn't touch the thermostat. Told me to settle in before my shift started at 21:00. I hadn't settled in. I'd dropped my duffel on the bed, used the bathroom, and come straight back here. Didn't feel right sitting in those quarters with nothing to do. Felt better to be here, to know the layout, to be ready. For what, I didn't know. I pulled the laminated card out of my jacket pocket and read it again under the fluorescence. Still specific. Still weird. I tried to picture someone mopping wet footprints toward the front door and couldn't make it make sense. Where would they come from? The stairwell led up to the lantern gallery, sure, but that door was locked. And even if it wasn't, even if someone got in, why would their footprints be wet? Rain, maybe. But then why not just kick them out? I put the card back in my pocket. Checked my watch. 21:47. The shift had barely started. By midnight, I'd done 2 walkthroughs, logged them on the sheet Dorothy had left on the desk in the administration office. Everything normal. No alarms, no wet footprints, no voices on the marine radio asking for a lens key. I'd turned the radio on around 23:30 just to see what it did. Static, mostly. A few bursts of distant chatter I couldn't make out. Coast Guard traffic, probably. I'd turned it back off after a minute. Now I was standing in the lobby again with a cup of black coffee in my hand. I'd made it in the administration office using the old coffee maker. Didn't know if it had to be fresh or if instant would work, so I'd gone with the grounds I found in the cabinet. Took maybe 6 minutes to brew. The smell filled the back hallway, bitter and strong. Poured it into a styrofoam cup. No sugar, no cream. Stood there holding it. Told myself this was stupid, a scare tactic. Something to keep night staff on edge, keep them awake, keep them paying attention. Maybe it was a tradition. Maybe every new hire got the same card and the same instructions and nobody ever actually saw anything. They just followed the rules because that's what you did. That made sense. Made more sense than the alternative. I checked my watch. 08, 2 minutes. The east windows were on the right side of the lobby facing the ocean. 3 tall panes, each maybe 6 feet high. I walked over. The windowsill was wide enough, painted white, a little dusty. I set the cup down at 0010 exactly. The coffee steamed faint in the cold air, then I turned away. Didn't look outside. Walked back toward the center of the lobby and stood there facing the gift shop counter with my back to the windows. My heart was beating faster. I noticed that. Annoyed me. Nothing was going to happen. The coffee would sit there and get cold, and at some point I'd throw it away and that would be it. But I didn't turn around. The wind pushed against the glass behind me. I could hear it. Steady. Low. I counted to 60 in my head. Then another 60. Told myself I could look now. The rule just said, don't look after placing it. Didn't say how long. But I didn't look. I walked back down the hallway toward the administration office instead, past the restrooms, past the storage closet. Checked the locks again, all secure. Came back to the lobby. The coffee was still on the windowsill. Still steaming, I thought. But maybe I was imagining that. I sat down on the floor with my back against the gift shop counter and pulled the laminated card out again. Read the rules one more time. At 0:09, I'd been sure it was a scare tactic. At 0:15, the doubt was settling in. I put the card away and checked my watch. 5 hours and 45 minutes left on the shift. The brass key hung cold against my chest. Outside, the wind kept pushing. I made the coffee at midnight exactly. Well, maybe a minute before. I wanted it fresh when I put it on the windowsill, figured that mattered somehow. Probably didn't. But I wasn't going to risk it. The break room coffee maker was the same ancient model my old crew boss had in his office trailer, white plastic stained yellow around the edges, the kind that drips if you don't position the pot just right. I found the coffee grounds in the cabinet above the sink, Folgers, half empty, no expiration date visible. Didn't matter. I measured out enough for a full pot, filled the reservoir with tap water that came out cold and metallic tasting, and hit the power button. The machine gurgled and hissed. I stood there watching it drip, checking my watch every 30 seconds. 12:03, 12:04. The smell filled the small room, bitter and familiar. Reminded me of every early morning shift I'd ever worked, every site trailer before dawn. At 12:08, I poured a full cup into one of the styrofoam cups stacked next to the sink. No cream, no sugar, just black, the way the card specified. Steam rose off the surface in thin wisps. I carried it down the hallway toward the lobby, both hands wrapped around the cup even though it wasn't that cold inside. My boots echoed on the waxed floor. The fluorescents buzzed overhead, one of them flickering worse than before. I made a mental note to log it, then forgot about it. The lobby was empty, obviously. Same as it had been 10 minutes ago, same as it had been all night. Exhibit panels on the walls, gift shop counter with the caution tape, windows facing east toward the ocean I couldn't see in the dark. I stopped at the east window. The sill was about waist height, painted white, dust visible in the overhead light. I set the cup down carefully, centering it so it wouldn't tip. 12:09. I stepped back, turned away, faced the counter. This was stupid. I felt stupid, standing here with my back to a cup of coffee like it mattered, like someone was going to come drink it. Probably Dorothy's idea of a hazing ritual. See if the new guy actually follows the weird instructions. See if he's desperate enough to play along. I was. I counted to 30 in my head. Listened. The building settled around me, old wood creaking, wind pushing against the exterior. That constant low hum of the heating system. Nothing else. At 45 seconds, I thought about walking away, going back to the office, logging my walkthrough, ignoring the whole thing. I didn't. At 60 seconds, I turned around. The cup was gone, just gone. The windowsill was empty except for the dust, a clean circular spot where the cup had been sitting. No coffee, no styrofoam, nothing. My stomach dropped. I stepped forward, checked the floor in case it had fallen. Nothing there either. Checked the sill again, ran my hand across the painted wood. Dry, not even a ring from condensation. Then I saw the handprint on the outside of the glass. Fog, like someone had pressed their palm against the window. 5 fingers. A thumb, clear enough to see the shape even in the dim light from inside. I put my own hand up next to it. The fingers were longer than mine. A lot longer. The palm was narrower. Wrong proportions. Not my hand. Not anyone's hand I'd ever seen. I pulled back. My heart was doing something unpleasant in my chest. That tight feeling, like before a fall. Like the split second when you know the ladder's going and there's nothing you can do. I stepped away from the window, looked at the lobby, empty. Looked down the hallway, empty. Listened. Nothing. No footsteps. No doors opening or closing. No sound of anyone moving anywhere in the building. I walked to the front entrance and tested the door. Locked, same as before. Checked the deadbolt. still engaged. Checked the alarm panel, still armed. Green LEDs steady. I walked down the hallway past the restrooms, checked the administration office door, locked, checked the storage closet, locked, kept going to the back exit near the restrooms, locked, deadbolt engaged. Every door the same as I'd left it. I stood in the hallway and listened for a full minute. The fluorescent above me flickered. The heating system hummed. Wind rattled something outside. Maybe a loose shutter. Maybe just sand against siding. Nothing else. I went back to the lobby. The handprint was still there on the glass, already starting to fade as the fog dissipated. I watched it disappear, finger by finger, until there was nothing left but clean glass and darkness beyond. The coffee was still gone. At 1:06, the marine radio crackled to life. I was sitting at the desk in the administration office logging my midnight walkthrough. The radio was on the corner of the desk where I'd left it, powered off, silent since I'd tested it earlier. The static started low. Just a hiss, barely audible. Then louder. Then a voice cut through. "Mayday, mayday, mayday. This is the vessel." Static. "Off Cape Point. We are taking on water. Repeat, taking on water. We need immediate assistance." I froze. Pen still on the paper. The voice continued. Male. Panicked. Clear enough to understand every word. "This is for Isaac Fig. Isaac Fig, do you copy? We know you're there. We need help now. Isaac Fig, please respond. We're 3 miles off Cape Point and sinking. Isaac Fig, if you can hear this..." I hit the power button. Shut it off. The voice cut mid-sentence. My hand was shaking. The card said shut off the radio immediately. It said step outside for exactly 3 minutes. It didn't say why. Didn't explain. Just those 2 instructions, clear and specific. I stood up. The chair scraped loud against the floor. My full name. The voice had used my full name. Not just Isaac. Isaac Fig. My name that nobody here knew except Dorothy. My name that wasn't on any public roster. My name that I'd only given on the application paperwork. I walked down the hallway. My boots sounded too loud. The fluorescents buzzed. I reached the front entrance, unlocked the deadbolt with hands that didn't feel steady, and stepped outside. The cold hit immediately. Wind out of the east, damp and salt-heavy, strong enough to push against my jacket. The parking lot lights made orange pools on the asphalt. My truck sat where I'd left it. Dorothy's sedan was gone. The maintenance van was still there, same spot as this afternoon. I pulled the door shut behind me, locked it from outside with the key Dorothy had given me. Then I just stood there on the concrete step. The card said exactly 3 minutes. I started counting. 1, 2, 3. The wind gusted. Sand hit my face, stinging. I kept my eyes on the parking lot lights. Didn't look past them. Didn't look toward the ocean, even though I could hear it out there in the dark. Waves hitting shore, steady and rhythmic and closer than seemed right. 15, 16, 17. Something in me wanted to look, wanted to see what was out there past the lights, down toward the surf line. The voice had said 3 miles off Cape Point. Cape Point was south of here, maybe a mile down the beach. If there was really a boat in trouble. I kept my eyes on the orange light. 31, 32, 33. There was no boat. There was no mayday. That voice wasn't real. 45, 46. My hands were cold. I shoved them in my jacket pockets. 1 minute. The wind died down for a few seconds, then picked back up stronger. I heard something rattle behind the building. Maybe a loose piece of siding, maybe something else. Didn't turn to look. 90, 91. This was insane. Standing in a parking lot at 1 in the morning counting seconds because a laminated card told me to. But the coffee had disappeared. The handprint had been real. Long fingers on the outside of the glass. 2 minutes. I kept counting. The wind pushed at my back. The parking lot lights hummed overhead, that electric buzz that sodium lamps make. My watch read 109, 150, 151, almost there, 170, 171. The surf sounded louder, closer. I didn't look. 179, 180. 3 minutes. I unlocked the door and went back inside. The lobby was the same, empty, fluorescents buzzing, gift shop counter, exhibit panels, windows facing the dark. I locked the door behind me, engaged the deadbolt, tested it twice. Then I walked back down the hallway to the administration office. The radio was on, powered on. Green light glowing on the face panel, volume knob where I'd left it. I'd shut it off. I knew I'd shut it off. Hit the power button, watched the light go dark, left it on the corner of the desk. Now it was on again. Static hissed from the speaker, low, steady, no voice, just that empty sound, like it was waiting for me to notice, like it knew I was standing there. I stared at it for a long time. The static didn't change, didn't get louder or softer, just hissed, patient and constant, filling the small office with white noise. I didn't touch it. At 1:40 in the morning, I saw them, wet footprints, bottom stair, clear as anything. I just finished another walkthrough, checked the back exit, tested the storage closet lock, walked past the restrooms. Everything normal, everything locked. I came back through the lobby heading toward the administration office, and that's when I noticed the prints. Small, bare feet. The toes were clearly defined, each one visible in the wet outline on the concrete stair. 5 toes. Normal number. But the prints themselves looked fresh, water still beating at the edges where they pressed into the dust. I stopped walking. The stairwell door was still closed. I'd checked it twice during my earlier rounds, locked both times, heavy deadbolt engaged. But now there were footprints leading up into the tower, disappearing into the darkness past the 3rd or 4th step. I stood there for probably 30 seconds, just watching. The water didn't move or evaporate or do anything except sit there looking warm somehow, which didn't make sense, but that's what it looked like. Nobody else was scheduled on site. Dorothy had made that clear. Night shift was solo, just me. I walked closer, crouched down near the bottom stair without touching anything. The footprints were small, maybe a size 6, maybe smaller. Bare feet with the arch clearly visible, toes splayed slightly like someone walking carefully up wet stairs. The water pooled in the toe impressions, dark against the concrete. I pulled the laminated card from my pocket, read Rule 3 again. If wet footprints appear on the interior stairwell leading to the lantern gallery, mop them toward the front entrance. Do not attempt to trace their origin. Mop them toward the front entrance. That was it. That was the whole instruction. I stood up. My knees cracked. The mop and bucket were in the storage closet. I'd seen them earlier during my first walkthrough. Yellow bucket, standard cotton mop head, both looking old but functional. I walked down the hallway, unlocked the storage closet. The mop was right where I'd seen it, leaning against a metal shelf next to industrial cleaning supplies and a stack of paper towels still in shrink wrap. I grabbed the mop and bucket, filled the bucket halfway at the break room sink. The water ran cold, then metallic tasting when I tested it with my finger out of habit. I didn't add soap. The card didn't mention soap. When I got back to the lobby, the footprints were still there, still wet, still leading up into the tower. I set the bucket down near the bottom stair. The stairwell door was still closed, still locked. I could see the deadbolt from where I stood, engaged, brass metal gleaming under the fluorescent lights. I dipped the mop into the bucket, squeezed out the excess water, started at the bottom stair. The mop head touched the first footprint. and the water pulled into the cotton fibers immediately. Warm enough that I felt it through the wood handle. Not hot, just warm. Body temperature, maybe. I pulled the mop back toward me, down the stair, across the lobby floor toward the front entrance. The card said mop them toward the front door. It didn't say mop them to the front door, but I figured that's what it meant. Toward implied direction, movement, get them out. I dipped the mop again, climbed up one stair. The second footprint was there, same size, same clear toe definition. I pressed the mop down and pulled it back, dragging the water down the step. It smelled like pennies. I stopped, lifted the mop head, smelled it directly, copper, metallic, like holding a handful of change in a closed fist on a hot day. I kept mopping, third stair, fourth stair. The prints kept going up, each one identical in size and shape. Bare feet, wet, warm. I followed them step by step, pulling the mop back toward the lobby each time, dragging the water down. My hands were sweating inside my gloves. I wasn't wearing gloves. I don't know why I thought that. Fifth stair, sixth stair. The water felt warmer now. Not hotter, just more noticeable. It soaked through the mop head, and I could feel the heat radiating up through the wooden handle into my palms. I tried not to think about what warm meant here. Tried not to picture where the prints came from, or what made them, or why they were warm instead of cold like seawater or rain. Seventh stair, eighth stair. The prints ended at the ninth stair. Just stopped. No more footprints above that point, just dry concrete leading up into darkness. I mopped the ninth print, pulled the water back down step by step, dragging the trail behind me until I reached the lobby floor. Then I mopped the water across the lobby toward the front entrance. Long strokes. The floor was already waxed and the mop glided easy, leaving wet streaks that caught the fluorescent light. At the front door threshold, the water stopped. I don't mean I stopped mopping. I mean the water stopped moving. I pushed the mop head across the metal threshold strip, the raised piece of aluminum that separated the lobby floor from the concrete step outside. The mop crossed it fine, but the water pooled at the edge, right up against the metal, and wouldn't go past. I pushed harder. The mop head compressed. Water squeezed out onto the threshold. But it didn't cross. It just sat there in a thin line, beating up along the metal strip like oil on glass. I pulled the mop back. The water stayed where it was. A neat line of warm, copper-smelling liquid sitting exactly at the threshold, refusing to move forward, as if whatever made them refuse to cross into open air. I stared at it for a long time, maybe a full minute. Then I mopped the water sideways, spreading it thin along the threshold until it evaporated or soaked into the concrete or disappeared. I don't know which. It was just gone after a while. I rinsed the mop in the bucket, put everything back in the storage closet, locked the door. My watch said 1:58. Back in the administration office, I stood next to the desk and looked at the phone. It was an old landline, beige plastic, coiled cord, number pad with actual buttons. Dorothy had pointed it out during her walkthrough but hadn't mentioned using it. There was a piece of masking tape stuck to the base of the phone with a number written in blue ink. 919-555-0472. Dare County Dispatch. Had to be. I picked up the receiver. Dial tone. I pressed the numbers carefully, one at a time. It rang twice. Dare County Dispatch, this is Ivy. Female voice, calm, professional. Hey, I said. This is Isaac Figg. I'm the night shift at Cape Hatteras Light Station. Go ahead, Isaac. I need to report something. Not an emergency, just something happened. There were wet footprints inside the building. I followed procedure, but I think someone should come check it out. Silence for a second. I heard typing. Wet footprints inside the facility? She said. Yeah, on the stairwell. I mopped them like I was supposed to, but I figured I should call it in. More typing. Are you in immediate danger? No. Building's secure. All locks checked. Just, it's weird. Understood. I'm logging the location now. I'll transfer the request for a deputy. Can you stay on the line? Yeah. Old music started. Not real music. Just a tone. I stood there holding the phone, watching the marine radio on the corner of the desk. Still powered on, still glowing green, still emitting that low static. The hold tone cut off. Isaac? Different voice. Male. Deeper. Yeah. This is Deputy Joey Olson. I'm about 15 minutes out. Ivy said you found footprints inside? Yeah, wet. On the stairs. I mopped them already, but I thought someone should know. You did right, he said. His voice was steady, calm. I'm close. I'll be there in 10, maybe less. Can you do something for me? Sure. Keep the office lights on. Stay where you can see the lobby entrance. Don't go outside. I'll call when I'm pulling in. Okay. Sit tight. The line went dead. I hung up the phone, looked at my watch, 2:04. I sat down in the desk chair, rolled it slightly so I could see through the open office door into the hallway. From this angle, I could see part of the lobby, the gift shop counter, the edge of the windows, the stairwell door. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. One of them flickered every 30 seconds or so. I counted it without meaning to. At 2:13, the phone rang. I picked it up. Yeah. Isaac, it's Joey. I'm in the parking lot, coming to the front entrance now. Okay. I hung up. Stood. Walked down the hallway to the lobby. Through the front windows, I could see headlights. A vehicle parked next to my truck. Sheriff's Department decal on the door. Light bar on the roof, not flashing. I unlocked the deadbolt, opened the door. Deputy Joey Olson stood on the step. Tall guy. Maybe 6'1", short dark hair, sheriff's uniform, duty belt with radio and sidearm. He nodded once. Isaac? Yeah. Let's take a look. I stepped back. He came inside. I locked the door behind him. Joey walked straight to the stairwell, examined the door, tested the deadbolt, crouched down and ran his hand across the bottom stair where the first footprint had been. Dry now, he said. Yeah. I mopped it maybe 20 minutes ago. He stood, looked up into the stairwell. You go up there? No. Card said mop them toward the entrance, didn't say go up. Joey turned, looked at me. Card? I pulled the laminated card from my pocket, handed it to him. He read it. Didn't say anything. Just read it twice, front to back, then handed it back to me. You followed Rule 3, he said. Yeah. Good. He walked to the front entrance, checked the threshold, ran his boot across the metal strip, crouched down again and looked at it close. Anything else happened tonight? He asked. I told him about the coffee, the handprint, the Mayday call on the marine radio. Joey listened without interrupting. When I finished, he nodded slowly. Rules aren't a prank, he said. Storms bring things in from the shoals, old things. They don't always leave when the weather clears. I didn't say anything. You did it right, Joey continued. You follow the card, you call dispatch, you stay inside. That's the job. What were the footprints? I asked. Joey looked at me for a long moment. Then he shook his head. Don't know, don't ask, just follow the rules. He walked back toward the door, stopped, turned. You got my number now. Anything else happens, you call. I'll come back. Okay. Joey left. I locked the door behind him. Watched through the window as he got in his vehicle, backed out, and drove down the access road until the taillights disappeared. I checked my watch. 2:31. 4.5 hours left on shift. Joey looked at me for a long second after I asked what the footprints were. He didn't answer right away. Just shook his head and said, Don't know. Don't ask. Follow the rules. Then he stopped. His hand was still resting on the door frame near the stairwell. He glanced back at the laminated card I was holding. Rule 4, he said. I nodded. You read it? Yeah. Joey's jaw tightened. He looked at the card again, then at me. That one got rewritten. I didn't say anything, just waited. Used to be different, Joey said. His voice dropped lower. Not quieter exactly, just heavier. Couple years back, before my time on this route, but I heard about it. Someone else had night shift here, same setup, same rules. He paused. Visitor came asking for the key. Guy thought he could handle it. Thought the rules were just covering the Park Service's ass or some kind of liability thing. My stomach dropped a little. I already knew where this was going. He didn't hand it over, Joey said. Tried to fight instead. Told the visitor to get out, threatened to call us. Joey's hand slid off the doorframe. We found him the next morning, inside the supply closet. Door was locked from the inside. No marks on him, but his eyes were open and his hands were... He stopped, shook his head once. Doesn't matter. Point is, he didn't walk away. I felt the brass key against my chest. The lanyard was still around my neck. The metal had warmed up from my body heat, but now it felt cold again. They rewrote the rule after that, Joey continued. Made it clearer. Hand over the key. Lock yourself in the closet. Don't try anything else. He looked at me straight on. If someone asks for the lens key, you give it to them. You don't hesitate. You don't argue. You just do it. And you hide until shift ends. I opened my mouth to respond. That's when I heard it. A clink. Metal on metal, sharp and clear. It came from the stairwell. Joey's head snapped toward the sound. His hand moved to his belt, not his radio. His sidearm. The clink came again, louder this time. It sounded like keys tapping against a railing, or maybe a belt buckle hitting concrete. I turned toward the stairwell door. It was still closed, still locked. The deadbolt was engaged. I could see it from where I was standing. But I heard footsteps now, slow, deliberate, coming down the stairs on the other side of the door. Joey moved. He stepped in front of me and put one hand out to the side, palm flat, telling me to stay back. The deadbolt turned. I didn't see anyone touch it, it just turned. Smooth and quiet. The lock disengaged with a soft click. The door opened. A man stepped into the lobby. He was tall, taller than Joey, maybe 6'3", long limbs, narrow build but solid, like someone who'd spent years doing physical work without bulking up. He wore a Coast Guard jacket, dark blue with reflective strips on the sleeves, and a brimmed cap pulled low enough to shadow most of his face. His trousers were worn but clean. His boots were polished and didn't have a single grain of sand on them. That part hit me first. The boots. It had been raining outside for hours. The wind was still going. I'd heard it against the windows during my walkthroughs. Joey's uniform had been damp when he came in, raindrops still beating on his shoulders. This guy was bone dry. The jacket didn't have a single wet spot. The cap wasn't darkened from moisture. Even his boots, polished black leather, looked like they'd just come out of a closet. He stepped fully into the lobby and closed the stairwell door behind him. It latched with a quiet click. Joey's hand stayed near his sidearm. He didn't draw it, just kept his fingers close. The man looked at me, not at Joey. At me. His eyes were pale blue, light enough that they looked almost gray under the fluorescence. He didn't blink. Not once. Just stared at me with his head tilted slightly to one side like he was reading something written on my forehead. "Evening," he said. His voice was calm, steady, formal, like he was reading from a script he'd memorized years ago. "Routine maintenance check," he continued, still looking at me, still not blinking. "I'll need access to the lantern gallery." Joey stepped forward half a pace. "Facilities closed," he said. His tone was controlled, professional, cop voice. "No maintenance scheduled tonight." The man didn't look at Joey, didn't acknowledge him at all, just kept his eyes on me. "I'll need the lens key," he said. My chest tightened. That was it. The exact phrase, word for word. If anyone asks for the lens key, give them the brass key from the equipment drawer and lock yourself in the supply closet until shift ends. I felt the weight of the key against my sternum. The braided lanyard was still around my neck. I could feel it pressing into my skin. The man waited, patient, hands at his sides, not threatening, not aggressive, just standing there. Joey glanced at me. His eyes were sharp, alert. He gave a tiny shake of his head. Don't. I looked back at the tall man. He hadn't moved, hadn't shifted his weight, hadn't blinked. He just stood there in his too-dry jacket and watched me with those pale eyes. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The sound felt louder now, sharper, like the hum was vibrating inside my skull. Joey's hand moved closer to his sidearm. "You need to leave," he said, louder this time, firm. "This is a restricted area. You're not authorized to be here." The man didn't respond, didn't even glance at Joey. He just waited. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. My hands were sweating. The laminated card was still in my left hand, corners digging into my palm. Joey had just told me what happened to the last guy, the one who didn't hand over the key, the one they found locked inside the supply closet with his eyes open. But Joey was also standing right here, armed, trained, telling me not to do it. The man tilted his head the other direction, still watching me. "The lens key," he said again. Same tone, same cadence, like he had all the time in the world. I looked at Joey. Joey's jaw was set. His hand hovered an inch from his holster. He shook his head again, slowly, deliberate. The fluorescent hum got louder, or maybe I was just hearing it more. It felt like it was pressing down on my shoulders. The man didn't move. I made my choice. I pulled the lanyard over my head. The brass key swung free, catching the overhead light for a second. It looked old, tarnished. The teeth were worn smooth in places. Joey's eyes widened. "Isaac!" I stepped forward and held the key out. The man reached for it. His hand moved smooth and steady. No hesitation. Our fingers didn't touch. I let go of the lanyard before he could make contact. But I saw it, just for a second. His knuckles split. Not cut, not bleeding. They just opened, like something underneath was pushing through the skin. I saw pale joints bent at angles that didn't match human anatomy, thin, too narrow. The bones looked wet. Then the skin sealed back over them, smooth, unbroken. The man took the key. He held it up to the light, examined it briefly, then slipped the lanyard over his own neck. The brass key disappeared under his jacket. "Thank you," he said. His voice didn't change. Still calm. Still formal. I backed toward the supply closet. My legs felt shaky, but I kept moving. Joey was saying something, but I couldn't hear him over the fluorescent hum. I reached the closet door, unlocked it, pulled it open. The man, Parker Figg, I'd remember later, though I didn't know his name yet, turned toward the stairwell. I stepped into the closet and pulled the door shut, locked it from the inside with the push-button lock on the handle. The closet was small, maybe 4 feet by 6. Shelves on 3 sides stocked with cleaning supplies, toilet paper, light bulbs. It smelled like bleach and dust. I pressed my back against the door and tried to breathe. The elevator bell rang, twice, clear and sharp. I froze. There wasn't supposed to be an elevator. Dorothy hadn't mentioned one. I hadn't seen one during my walkthroughs, but I heard it. 2 clean chimes, like someone had just pressed a call button. Then the building went quiet. Not silent. Quiet. The fluorescent hum stopped. The wind outside stopped. Even the faint static from the marine radio, still on in the administration office, cut out completely. I held my breath. Something thumped overhead, heavy, irregular, like weight shifting on old floorboards. It moved, dragged, thumped again. I heard Joey's voice, muffled through the door. "Stay in there." Footsteps, his boots on the waxed floor. "I'm going up," Joey said. Louder now. He was talking to me through the closet door. "You stay locked in, you hear me? Don't come out until your shift ends or I come back and tell you it's clear." I didn't answer. My throat was too tight. More footsteps, moving away, toward the stairwell. The door opened, hinges creaked, then Joey's boots on concrete, climbing the stairs. The thumping overhead got louder. The door handle started turning. I heard it before I saw it. That soft metal scrape, the kind you get when someone's testing a lock real slow. I was sitting on the floor with my back against the mop bucket, staring at the crack under the door where the fluorescent light bled through. The handle turned clockwise, maybe half an inch, then stopped, then turned again. A smell pushed through the gap. Wet. Not rain wet, something older, like standing water that's been sitting in a basement for weeks. And underneath that, the copper smell again. Pennies. Blood. The same scent that came off the footprints. Isaac. Parker's voice came through the door. Still calm. Still formal. The key was wrong. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. "I'll need you to come verify the lens in person." The handle turned again. I could see the little push-button lock on my side holding, but it wasn't much. Just a cheap interior door lock. The kind you could pop with a credit card if you knew what you were doing. Then Joey's voice came from farther away. Up. He was up the stairs now, and his voice sounded strained, urgent. "Isaac, don't open it. Stay where you are." I pressed my palms flat against the concrete floor. Cold. Gritty. Real. Joey again, louder. "Isaac, I need you to..." Then his voice cut off mid-word like someone hit pause. The handle stopped turning. I sat there in the dark closet that smelled like bleach and old cotton and waited. My hands were shaking. I pulled the laminated card out of my pocket even though I couldn't read it in the dark. Just held it, ran my thumb over the smooth plastic edge. Rule 4. If anyone asks for the lens key, give them the brass key and lock yourself in the supply closet until shift ends. I'd done that. I gave him the key. I locked myself in. But Rule 5. Never shine a flashlight or any other light source into the lantern room after 2 a.m. It was past 2 now. Had to be. And Parker was up there, with the key, heading to the lantern room. The rules didn't line up. They boxed you in. Give him the key. Lock yourself away. But don't let anything happen in the lantern room after 2. How was I supposed to stop that from in here? I started running through the rest of them in my head. Coffee on the windowsill at 12:10. Don't look outside. Mayday with my name. Shut off the radio. Step outside for exactly 3 minutes. Wet footprints. Mop them toward the entrance. Don't trace their origin. Every single one was about doing something specific and not asking questions. Not fighting back. Just follow the steps and survive. But Joey was out there. And Parker wasn't human. I'd seen his knuckles split open. Seen bones that didn't fit right. A soft knock came on the door. 3 taps. Patient. Polite. "Isaac." Parker's voice again, right on the other side of the wood. Close enough I could hear him breathing, except he wasn't breathing. No sound of air moving. Just the voice. "I'd like to proceed with the inspection. Your assistance is required." I pulled my knees up to my chest and wrapped my arms around them, pressed my face down, tried to think. Then the marine radio turned on. Not in the office. In here. In the closet with me. I jerked my head up and looked around even though I couldn't see anything. The green power light glowed on the shelf to my left, right next to the mop handle. I'd brought the radio in with me. I didn't remember doing that. But there it was, powered on, glowing. Static hissed out of the speaker, low and steady. Then a voice came through. My voice. Help. It was me. My exact voice, my inflection, the way I sounded when I was tired. Please help. I'm locked in. I can't get out. I clamped my hands over my ears and bent forward until my forehead touched my knees. Please. My voice again, crackling through the static. It's inside with me. Please let me out, please. I started counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. The voice kept begging, kept using my words. 21, 22, 23. A gunshot cracked through the building. Loud enough I felt it in my chest, even through the door and my hands in the counting. Then a sound I didn't have a name for. Wet. Heavy. Like something big hitting water from a height. A splash, but thicker. The radio went silent. The green light stayed on, but no more static. No more voice. I kept counting. 58, 59, 60. My watch read 2:03 a.m. I thought about staying in the closet. That's what the rule said. Lock yourself in until shift ends. Shift ended at 6. I could wait 3 more hours. Just sit here in the dark and wait and not think about Joey or the gunshot or the wet sound after. But that's what it wanted. Keep me pinned. Keep me out of the way while it did whatever it was going to do up in that lantern room. I unlocked the door, shoved it open and ran. Didn't look at the stairwell. Didn't look for Parker. Just sprinted straight across the lobby toward the front entrance with my keys already out and my hands shaking so bad I almost dropped them. I saw Joey. He was on the floor at the base of the stairs, on his back. His radio was smashed next to him, plastic casing cracked open, wires showing. His jacket was torn at the shoulder and something dark spread across his chest. Blood. Fresh. Still spreading. But he was breathing. Short, shallow breaths. His eyes were open and locked on something above him. The stairwell. The tower. I stopped. I shouldn't have stopped. But I did. Joey. He didn't look at me. Couldn't. His eyes stayed fixed upward like he was watching something I couldn't see. I followed his gaze. Parker Figg was halfway up the stairwell, standing on the landing where the stairs turned. He was looking down at me with those pale blue eyes, and he was holding the brass key up in one hand like a fisherman showing off a hook that's already set. He didn't say anything, just watched me, waited. I turned and ran for the door, got it unlocked, got it open. Cold wind hit my face, and I stumbled out onto the concrete step and pulled the door shut behind me and locked it from the outside. No Mayday this time. No voice on the radio saying my name. But the rule said 3 minutes outside. Exactly 3 minutes. I started counting. The wind was coming hard from the east, carrying salt and sand that stung when it hit my face. I kept my eyes down, watched my boots, watched the concrete step. 100, 101, 102. Behind me, inside the building, I heard a click. Mechanical. Loud enough to carry over the wind. Then light flooded the parking lot. The lighthouse light. It turned itself on. I didn't look up, kept my eyes on my boots and kept counting. 130, 131. Something screamed. Not human, not animal. Metal tearing, glass vibrating, a sound that came from the lantern room at the top of the tower and pushed through the walls and the wind and straight into my skull. I pressed my hands over my ears, but it didn't help. The scream wasn't just sound, it was pressure. It made my teeth hurt. I kept counting. 162, 163. The scream went on and on, steady, unbroken, like a machine that couldn't stop. 179, 180, 3 minutes. The scream cut off, instant, like someone flipped a switch. I unlocked the door and went back inside. Parker Figg was at the bottom of the stairwell now, folded. That's the only word for it. His legs were bent wrong, knees facing directions knees don't go, and his arms were tucked against his ribs at angles that didn't fit. His face was pressed to the concrete and his cap had come off. The brass key lay on the step 3 feet above him, the lanyard stretched out like someone had dropped it mid-climb. Joey was still on the floor where I'd left him, but he wasn't breathing anymore. His eyes were still open, still looking up at the tower, but his chest didn't move. The blood had stopped spreading. I stood in the doorway with the wind pushing at my back and looked at both of them. Parker didn't move, didn't unfold, just stayed there, broken. I walked over to the stairs, stepped past Parker's body, picked up the brass key. The metal was cold again, colder than it should have been. I put the lanyard over my head and went to check the locks. Dorothy came back at sunrise. I was sitting in the administration office with all the lights on and the door open so I could see the lobby. Parker's body was gone. I didn't see it disappear. I looked away for maybe 30 seconds to log the final walkthrough, and when I looked back, the stairwell was empty. Joey was still there. Dorothy walked past him without stopping, came straight to the office, looked at me sitting in the chair with the brass key around my neck and the log sheet in front of me. "Deputy lasted longer than most," she said. I didn't say anything. She pulled a styrofoam cup from the break room, poured black coffee from the pot I'd made an hour ago, and set it on the desk in front of me. "Wash the key in that before you put it back in the drawer." I looked at the coffee, looked at her. "Wash it," she said again. "Then lock it up. Then we'll handle the rest." I pulled the lanyard over my head and dropped the brass key into the coffee. It sank to the bottom of the cup. The coffee didn't change color, didn't steam. I waited 2 minutes, then fished the key out with my fingers. The coffee was cold. The key looked the same, maybe cleaner. I dried it on my shirt and walked to the equipment cabinet. Dorothy unlocked it for me. I put the key back in the drawer on its braided lanyard, exactly where I'd found it. Radio on the left, flashlight next to it, first aid kit in the back corner, key on top of the laminated card. She closed the drawer and locked it. "The log," she said. I went back to the desk and picked up the sheet. I'd written everything, every walkthrough, every time I checked the locks. The coffee at 12:10, the footprints at 1:40, the call to dispatch at 1:58. Dorothy took the sheet from my hand and read it. Didn't react. Just read. Then she pulled a pen from her pocket, drew a single line through the last 4 entries, and handed the sheet back to me. "Rewrite it," she said. "Nothing unusual, standard rounds, no calls, no visitors." I looked at Joey's body in the lobby, still on his back, still staring up. "They'll ask questions," I said. "They won't." Dorothy's voice didn't change. Deputy responded to a different call. "Automotive accident on Highway 12. He didn't make it. That's what the report will say. His truck's in the parking lot." "No, it isn't." I looked out the office door. Through the window, I could see my truck and the white maintenance van. Joey's patrol car was gone. Dorothy waited. I picked up the pen and started rewriting. Standard rounds at 9, 11, 1, 3, and 5. All clear, no alarms, no incidents. Weather conditions normal, facility secure. My handwriting looked shaky, but I kept going. Signed my name at the bottom. Dated it. Dorothy took the sheet, read it again, and nodded once. "Clean the lobby," she said. "Mop and bleach. The stairwell, too. All the way to the landing. Don't go higher than that." She walked out. I heard her making a phone call in the hallway. Couldn't make out the words. Just the tone. Professional. Calm. Reporting something routine. I got the mop and bucket from the supply closet, same ones I'd used for the footprints. Filled the bucket with hot water this time and added bleach from the bottle under the break room sink. The smell burned my nose. I started in the lobby, mopped around Joey first, then realized that wasn't going to work. I stood there with the mop in my hand, looking at him, and Dorothy came back. "Go outside," she said. "Walk to the keeper's quarters. Stay there until I come get you." I put the mop down and left. The wind had died down. The sky was getting lighter, that flat gray that comes before real sunrise. I walked past the lighthouse without looking up at the lantern room and went to the keeper's quarters. My duffel bag was still on the bed where I dropped it yesterday. Felt like a year ago. I sat on the edge of the bed and waited. Dorothy came back 40 minutes later, knocked once and opened the door without waiting for me to answer. "It's clean," she said. "Finish your shift. Lock up at 6. I'll be back at 8 to go over next week's schedule." "Next week," I said. "You're keeping the job unless you don't want it." I thought about that. Thought about my truck with the bad fuel gauge and the $400 I had left, and the eviction notice and the phone calls to people who wouldn't help. "What happens if I don't want it?" I asked. Dorothy looked at me for a long moment. Not threatening, just factual. "Then you're a loose thread," she said. "And loose threads get trimmed." She left. I went back to the main building at 10 to 6. The lobby was spotless, floors waxed and gleaming. No blood, no body. The stairwell smelled like bleach all the way up to the landing, and I didn't go past that to check higher. I locked up at 6, logged out, put the sheet in the administration office filing tray like Dorothy had shown me. Then I went back to the keeper's quarters and slept 4 hours. I kept the job through the rest of the season, February, March, April. Every night, 9 to 6. Every night the same rules. Coffee on the east windowsill at 12:10. It disappeared every time. Sometimes I saw the handprint, sometimes I didn't. The Marine radio called Mayday with my name twice more. Both times I shut it off and stood outside for exactly 3 minutes. Wet footprints showed up 4 more times. Small bare feet. I mopped them toward the entrance every time, and the water never crossed the threshold. Nobody ever asked for the lens key again. I followed the rules. I logged standard rounds. I called Dorothy once when the heating system failed and once when the front door lock jammed. Both times she came out, fixed it, and left without talking about anything else. I didn't ask questions. Didn't push. Didn't try to go up to the lantern room or figure out what Parker had been or why the rules worked the way they did. The alternative was being a loose thread. In April, the season ended. Dorothy told me the Lighthouse was reopening for tourists and they didn't need overnight staff until November. She paid me in cash for the full 3 months, handed me an envelope with a phone number, and said to call in October if I wanted the job again. I took the money. Didn't call. I left the Outer Banks on a Tuesday morning with the same duffel bag and enough cash to get an apartment in Wilmington and put down deposit on a job driving forklift at a warehouse. But I kept the laminated card. I don't know why. Should have left it in the drawer with the brass key. Should have walked away clean, but I didn't. I took it with me. Some nights I pull it out and read the rules again. 5 simple steps. Do this. Don't do that. Hand over the key. Lock yourself away. Count to 3 minutes. The rules didn't save Joey. They weren't meant to. They were meant to keep the thing in the tower fed, keep it predictable, keep it contained. And the price got paid by whoever stood closest when the transaction came due. I handed Parker the key. I locked myself in the closet. I followed every step exactly right. Joey died anyway. Dorothy said he lasted longer than most. Like that was supposed to mean something. Like there was a scoreboard somewhere tracking how many seconds you could hold out before the rules stopped protecting you and started using you instead. I got out. I survived. I collected my pay and left. But I kept the card. And sometimes, late at night in my apartment in Wilmington with the door locked and the lights on, I take it out and wonder what would have happened if I'd made a different choice. If I'd refused to hand over the key. If I'd stayed in the closet the full 3 hours. If I'd run outside and kept running and never looked back. I don't know. I just know the rules worked exactly how they were designed to work, and I know what I paid to learn that.